I would describe When Everything Feels Like the Movies as Sweet Valley High meets 120 Days of Sodom. It's about a boy who is determined to win the love of his high school crush and the world. I wrote When Everything Feels Like the Movies in layers. Writing a book is kind of like painting a picture. Like, you see the surface level, but there's so much underneath. So what I learned was that you have to be patient, which isn't my strong suit. When Everything Feels Like the Movies is definitely provocative, but ultimately it was inspired by a young person's need to be loved, not only in their personal relationships, but on a global level. I think a lot of teenagers think that fame is the ultimate love and that they need to obtain it to be happy. I named the book When Everything Feels Like the Movies because the protagonist, Jude, thinks that life is a performance and he's up for an award. He's up for all of them. The title is taken from lyrics of the song Iris by Goo Goo Dolls. And since the story is so cinematic, I wanted the title to be a part of the soundtrack. The most difficult thing about writing When Everything Feels Like the Movies has been learning how to let it go. It's on bookshelves and I'm still rewriting it. I'm a bit obsessive compulsive, but I channel my obsession into productivity. I'm currently adapting the story into a screenplay, and on November 18th I'm going to release a single called Like a Movie Star, which is an accompaniment to the book, and it'll be available for download on iTunes, with proceeds benefiting Out in Schools, which is a program that goes to BC schools and educates youth through about homophobia and transphobia through filmmaking. And I also filmed a video for the song, which will come out on November 18th as well, in which I star as the demon Baphomet in Marilyn Monroe drag.